Catherine, my now wife, and I were sitting in her car, in the driveway in front of my house. We were teenagers. We had been dating a few months. We had made our relationship official. We had told family and friends we were a couple. We had even talked with each other about how serious and special this moment felt. But it was on that night, almost 36 years ago, maybe this week or next week, that for the first time, somebody besides my parents or close friends looked into my eyes with intent and said these words: "I love you." Someone who had a choice, someone who chose me, someone who desired to express that kind of love to me. And I had made a commitment to myself and to those that I was going to be in a relationship that I would actually never say those words to somebody unless, one, I truly meant them and I truly desired to consider spending the rest of my life with them. And so in that instant, I knew that thought was the same, and I replied to her, "I love you as well." I don't think I said as well, I probably said too. "I love you too." But those words spoken that night transformed our relationship. We went from even just dating to two people in love, and then eventually two people that were married, building a family, and now having done life together for over 36 years. The idea of love is where we're going to focus our next teaching series. And today we begin this new series called Love Shown in Three Acts. And over the next few weeks, we're going to take a biblical view of the concept of love. Now, why? Why do we do this? Because in John 13:35, Jesus actually said in a key teaching, it was one of his last teachings to his disciples right before his crucifixion, and he said, "A new command I give to you, love one another." He says, "You will be known by your love. They will know that you are my disciples, my followers, by the way that you demonstrate and show love." A new command. He's saying it's not by your obedience to the law, not by your ability to impress people with prayers, not by the amount of money that you give, not by how much scripture you can remember, or how demonstrative you are in worship, or how much you can point out the faults of others that they will know you that are my followers. It is by how much you love that they will know that you are my followers. Now imagine most of us in here, if we ask ourselves what it means to love someone or something, we might start with some common answers. But I would imagine that we would diverge pretty quickly as we got deeper into the conversation of what true love means. Loving and being loved is a very deep topic that can bring up drastically different feelings in each of us. But true love is honestly more than just a definition. It is demonstrated. It is shown. And this is why I've called this series Love Shown in Three Acts, because it is like a well-written play that takes us on a journey, takes us from ideas into actions, puts us into the story. And there are three distinct acts that Jesus says our love should demonstrate. Jesus often talked about how to love, who to love, and why to love. Love was always at the center of Jesus' messages. And this series will challenge us to better understand to love the way that Jesus did. And specifically, Jesus highlighted three types of love we should demonstrate: the love for the Lord, love for others, our neighbors, and the one we're going to get to in the third week, love for our enemies. All of those carry their own obstacles and challenges, right? And rewards. But for each of us, it's important to embrace how do we love God, love others, and even love our enemies, because it is how people will know that we are followers of Christ. I wish I could say this was a multiple choice and you got to pick one of the three. But it's not. It's a all in on all three. To love the way Jesus loved is to love God, love others, and love our enemies. Now, before we jump into the heart of the teaching for tonight about loving God, I want to give you just a couple of things, frameworks to make sure we're on the same page of what we're talking about doing and feeling here. And the first thing I want you to understand, that to love the way that we're going to look at, to love God the way we're going to look at, to love others and our enemies the way that we're going to look at, I'll be very honest, it's not in our ability. It's not in our ability to do humanly. We are able to do this only because we are followers of Christ, and you and I have experienced the type of love from God that he is asking us to express back to him, others, and those that we even are challenged to love. So this kind of love that we're talking about is not something you just got to go home and practice more. You got to read another book on. You got to just put these 4 things into practice. It actually comes from a supernatural work within our lives as we experience the love of God in our own life. So it makes me understand this. If I am having trouble loving God, loving others, or even loving my enemies, there's somewhere in my life where I'm not fully experiencing the love of God. Maybe I don't feel like I can forgive somebody and love my enemy because I don't truly believe God has forgiven and loves me that way. Or I can't love others because maybe somehow I think the love of God is quantified, it's measurable, and if I can measure it, I got to hold on to as much of it as I can versus giving it freely. So there's all kinds of different things. It's not in our ability, but it gets poured into us as we get transformed by the love of God. But I also want you to see this. It's also not our pathway of salvation. Loving God, loving others, and it says it is how they will know we are followers of Jesus. It is not the way that we come to Jesus. Jesus is the truth, the life, and our salvation. He has done all the work for us. Salvation comes not by the work of my hands, but by the work of Christ in our world and in our lives, the sacrifice of Christ. And so this is not a means of my salvation, but this is what it is. It is a demonstration of the salvation that has happened in my life. That I have truly understood the sacrifice Christ made for me, the love that he has poured out on me from that cross, and it makes me want to love others deeply. So let's jump into Act 1 tonight, the love for the Lord. And we're going to be in Mark 12, verse 28 through 30, as we look at a key verse. If you've been around the church at all, you have probably heard these verses at some point. But let me read them together, and then we'll talk through these. And it said, one of the scribes came up and heard them disputing, because this was a time in the chapter of Mark where the scribes and Pharisees were just peppering Jesus with questions, trying to trap him and get him to say certain things. And one of the scribes came up, and it says, he had heard that he had answered the other questions well. He asked Jesus, which commandment is the most important of all? And Jesus answered, the most important is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. Now, as great of a teaching this is, these words did not originate from Jesus right here in this moment. This is called the Shema. It's actually goes all the way back to Deuteronomy. It was one of the core values of the Israelites' faith, the Jewish faith at the time. And the word Shema actually means listen up, pay attention. This is important. And so Jesus is bringing back this core teaching and saying at the very heart, the number one command is the way that you love God. You're commanded to love God. Now, we often talk about the things that we love about God, right? I mean, I love his grace. I love his mercy. I love his forgiveness. I love the blessings that he gives. But how do we actually express love back to God? This is what this command is challenging us to do. Not just to realize all the things we love about God, but to love him back, not for his sake, but for all. Imagine Catherine and I have been married 30 plus years now. If all I ever told her was what I loved about what she did for me. I love that you wash my clothes. I love that you clean that pattern. I love that you do this. That's nice to an extent, but it's telling her things that I'm getting the joy from versus actually what I love about her sense of humor, the joy she brings into each day, the way she serves God and other people. Those are things that I love her for, not just what she does for me. Because that's actually kind of a selfish kind of love. The reason I love you is because of all the things you do for me. Shared love is both received and given. And over the rest of our time tonight, I want to take a quick look at these 4 ways that Jesus says that we are to demonstrate or express our love for God with our heart, soul, mind, and strength. So in Act 1, we have scene 1, which is the heart. The first way to love the Lord is with our heart. And the word heart here doesn't refer to that physical heart, of course, but our inner being, the seat of our feelings, the source of emotions, the places where affections are born, devotions are developed, intimacy is experienced. And while love is more than a feeling, it is a feeling. It is a feeling. And Jesus knows this, and he reminds us of this. Our relationship and our love for God is not just knowledge, it is a feeling that grows into the second part, which is desire. We should desire. A love from the heart is the idea that we want to be with someone. We can't wait to see them. We can't wait to spend time with them. A desire to be in and around and among their presence. If you're ever in an early dating relationship, you just can't get enough of talking on the phone or now texting or writing to that person when you are falling in love. We still have a box of letters that we wrote back and forth because when we started dating, we were in different cities. We would spend times when we had to pay for long distance. We were apart. We had to pay to use long distance. We just wanted to be together, to hear each other's voices. This is a desire. This is how we love God. We feel it, and it is a desire to be in church, to be in group, to be in prayer, to be in the presence of God. Which leads us to the third part of this act, which is to surrender. We start to lose ourselves in the love of one another. The Bible refers to this as, in a marriage relationship, two becoming one, the binding of hearts, a willingness to let go of a singular identity, embrace an us mentality. It's surrounding us in a sense of it's not in giving up, but instead it's a sense of letting go and grabbing hold of something new. This is the difference between telling God, I love what you do for me, and I love being with you. I don't want just your blessings. I want your presence. And honestly, a tempered following of Jesus, following Jesus at arm's distance, unwilling to surrender, to join our lives together, it's hard to experience desire and actually will lead to frustration. In each one of these points that we're going to look at, heart, soul, mind, and strength, I'm going to use a story from the life of David, or a moment from the life of David to illustrate these. And instead of actually reading through the whole passage or the whole story, because some of them are lengthy, I put together one of my favorite type of poetry, which is haikus. I don't know if you're a haiku fan, but they're short little pieces and that kind of tell the story of what we're going to look at out of Scripture. And Psalm 63 is the first one we're going to look at. It's a psalm of David speaking about this deep desire to be in his presence. And I encourage you to go read Psalm 63, but this is the haiku that came out of there. It says this: early I seek you, thirsting in a barren land. Your glory shines bright. Your love is my life. It's better than breath. I will praise. Hands raised to the skies. You fill up my soul. Songs rise in the quiet night. I think of your love. You are my refuge. In your shadow I find peace, held close by your hand. I would dare say that many of us, that this kind of overwhelming desire for God may seem a little foreign. I mean, we enjoy God. We like him a lot. We would even say that we love him, but when's the last time our soul thirsted for him? When's the last time that you felt the presence of God was better than your breath that you breathe? When's the last time you stayed up all night because you couldn't stop thinking about the wonders of God? This is what he's talking about here, this desire. We can't get enough. And honestly, if we struggle with this type of love, we struggle with intimacy. we actually struggle with wanting to let anybody close to us. And many times a struggle for intimacy comes because of pain or loneliness. You've either experienced pain in your life and you said, I can't do that again, or you've been lonely for so long, you think, nobody can love me like that. And I want to tell you, encourage you, God's love for you can overcome any hurt, any pain, any loneliness. When you're sitting home alone and you feel it's only you, God wants to be with you right there. He wants to be with you. He doesn't have to be, he wants to be. And he can walk you through whatever pain. I know to love like this is challenging sometimes, but there is such joy in it when we get to love God with all of our heart. But there's a second way he tells us to love, and it's with our soul. Scene 2 starts with this idea of loving him with our soul. What does this mean? Soul here, the word actually means to give life to animate something, to bring about. It's the concept of adding energy, excitement, direction, some kind of stimulation to the relationship. The soul is like the blood that flows out from the heart and goes to every other part of the body and gives it life. And when this happens, it builds something, and what it builds is the second part of this love. It's passion. It builds a passion to doing life together. To love God with your soul means that you begin to desire the things he desires. Your passions begin to line up with his passions. Feelings turn into actions. They turn into responses. You don't lose your self-identity and become a robot to fit some mold. Instead, it means that you become alive in Christ. You become fully what he desired for you to be. You experience life to the fullest, to the maximum. Passion begins to happen. Excitement begins to grow in your life. Loving God, following Jesus does not become boring and dull. It is alive. This is passion. When Catherine and I were starting to dating, we started to learn. I would go to her family for stuff. She would come to my family for stuff. Her family was very different than my family, and we were both experiencing different things. She grew up Catholic. I grew up in a Baptist Protestant church in the States. I remember the first time I went to a Catholic church, I felt like I had missed the instruction manual. I didn't know when to stand and sit and do all the things they were doing. She came to my Baptist church, and they were having an altar call for people to come down front, and they thought she was going to come get dragged down front and thrown in a baptistry. We didn't know. We were learning things about each other, but there was excitement in that, right? Discovering new things. When you have passion, when you love the Lord with your soul, you're discovering new things about him all the time, which brings us to the third part, which is an act of submission, where we start to follow where he leads. This is the active part of love. We start doing things together. He guides us, we follow. He warns us, we avoid. He empowers us, we step out on faith. Submission is not a bad thing. It's a willingness to follow, to join the journey, to get out and go with God. When we stop looking at God as telling us what we can't do and instead taking us to places we've never been, we start seeing faith come alive. And this is what happened to David in 2 Samuel 6. The Ark of the Covenant had been had been stored outside of Jerusalem for a long time. And God finally told David, it's time to bring the Ark, the promise, the picture of the covenant, the presence of God back into Jerusalem where it was. And this excited David as a king. He'd been waiting for this, and God said, go, let's do this. And in the midst of this, he begins to dance with joy, right? And it says, the way it describes it is a dance that he's probably not fully clothed in, and his wife is looking on with shame at him and disgust because she's embarrassed because someone would lose their dignity to the world to please God. But David had passion. And here's how I say it through a little bit of poetry. Clothed in simple grace, the king leaps with all his might, joy before the Lord. Music fills the streets, voices rise like morning light, the ark comes to rest. but eyes behind the glass. Pride cannot join holy joy. In silence speaks her heart. Yet I will dance for him. Even lowly in their eyes, God has made me glad. The thing that saps our passion often, just like fear and pain can sap our love for the heart and our ability to love God with all our heart, what saps our ability to love God with all our passion is fear of what other people will think. What if I really got excited about God? What if it really impacted all the areas of my life? What if I really was a person of joy and peace and hope, and people saw it? This is what David dealt with, but he said, you know what? I dance before the Lord because he is the one I love. Scene 3. The third way we love God is with our mind. And I'm really glad he put this in here. The word mind here refers to reasoning, logic, and understanding. It's to love with thinking. We're to love God as we search his nature, as we explore his character, as we delve into the depths of his holiness and wisdom. He's actually calling us to the second part here is to explore with him, to explore him, to get to know him, the depths of who God is. This means that we have the freedom to ask questions, even difficult questions of God. Loving God is asking him the difficult questions. When you don't understand something, when you can't see the reason behind something, when you don't feel loved, accepted, or cared for, we don't have to sit back and keep our mouths shut. Instead, he encourages us to ask, to explore the depths of who he is, and to seek him for answers, to prove his love, grace, and peace. What if, for those of you who are married, what if on the first day of your marriage, that was the most you ever got to know your spouse? Right? Like you don't learn anything else new. You don't get to ask any questions. You don't get to grow together. Wherever you come in at that moment, that's it. That marriage wouldn't last. Right? You're not growing in intimacy. You're just two people, and you'd eventually end up butting heads together if you don't give each other the freedom to grow and move. We joke all the time, we've been married to 7 or 8 different people in our lives because we've been 7 or 8 different people as we've grown in who we are and understanding who we are. Loving God and placing your faith in him doesn't mean that we can't ask questions. It's actually, when we come to faith, it is the beginning of the exploration with God, that we get to seek the depths of his character. God does not call us to blind faith. He calls us to a saving faith that gives us the freedom to explore that relationship. This is how it grows. And here's what it grows into. It grows into trust. Trust. I begin to trust God enough to ask him the tough questions when they come. I'm not scared of what his answer's going to be. It may be painful. It may be a difficult journey. It may be challenging. But I trust him to teach me, to grow me, to take me in directions and places I didn't even know existed. I began to learn what faith really is, not just a knowledge, but a knowledge that leads to trust and obedience. Psalms 13 is another psalm of David, and as joyous as the first one was, this one is a dark psalm. Something's going on in David's life, and he has questions. In Psalm 13, if you read it in its entirety, it's David crying out to God. But here's how I state it in a few lines of poetry. How long will you hide? My soul wrestles with sorrow. Darkness fills my mind. Look and answer me, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Enemies rejoice. Yet your love holds my soul. I will sing, for you have saved. Joy will fill my song. Through this psalm, David pours out his heart, the pain he's feeling, and in doing so, it brings him back to a reminder that he can trust God. Why don't we love God this way? If fear keeps our soul away, if hurt keeps our heart away from God, what keeps our mind away? And I think for many of us, it's self-righteousness. It's the idea that we think we can solve this ourselves. We don't need God. And you would say, well, that's kind of, off. But the truth is oftentimes we think we don't go to God to search for answers because we go to ourselves for the answers first. And God is saying, I'm big enough, I'm strong enough, I'm deep enough, my wisdom is grand enough to handle any question you have. Come to him. Scene 4, the last one, strength. This final demonstration is through our strength. And this word means a desire that once this desire had been developed and we're exploring these passions in the depths of his relationship, we begin to grow in capacity or potential. That's what strength is. It's a capacity, a growth in our ability to do things. It's starting to understand what God can do through you when you love him and follow him deeply, that builds us to what we would call a new resolve in our life. We have a deeper resolve to do things that we never thought we could, to live according to the ways of the Lord, a new way of living. The great stories of the Bible aren't because these men and women of the Bible had some great or special abilities that we don't have access to today. Instead, it became the great stories of the Bible are there because these people had great resolve. Moses wasn't a great man. He had a great resolve to free Israel from slavery. Esther wasn't just a great woman. She had a great resolve to ask the king for mercy for her people. The disciples weren't great men, but they lived with great resolve to spread the gospel of Christ around the world. And when you start to see God doing amazing things through you, it leads you to a life to resolve to follow him anywhere he leads. Which leads us to this third part. We start to live with abandon. And abandon. We want more of him, which means we let go of other things. It's not that we abandon people and relationships and places. It's just that the things that hold the most importance in our life start to center around God and what he wants us to do. You'll find yourself in moments where the circumstances seem overwhelming and you have to abandon your own reason sometimes and grab hold to faith in God to follow. You'll find yourself sometimes in great pain and you'll have to let go of that fear sometimes in order to abandon that fear in order to grab hold of the hope that we have in Christ. And this is where David found himself in 1 Samuel 17, probably the most famous story of David's life. He was a shepherd boy. Someone had come and told him he was going to be king one day, but he was still out tending the sheep. The world's at war, and he goes and he sees a giant taunting the name of God and the people of God, and he can't take it. And because of deep resolve and love for God, he takes on the smallest man there, takes on the biggest giant that everyone else feared. And we know what happens, but here's how I'll say it in the story. Giant stands so tall, armor gleams beneath the sun, fear grips every heart. Shepherd boy steps forth, trusting God, not sword or shield. Faith becomes his strength. Stones fly through the air, giant falls with thunder crash. Victory is won. Shouts rise from the hills. God delivers through the small. Glory fills the land. Giants in our lives will fall when we follow God and love God with all of our strength and we don't hold anything back. And honestly, the thing I think that keeps us from loving God with all of our strength is something we all struggle with, which is pride. It's pride. Because ultimately, I want what I want. I want to be in charge. I don't want to abandon my authority. I'll abandon certain things, but ultimately, I want to be the one with my hands on the steering wheel and to let go fully and let God take control with resolve and follow is a hard thing to do. Which brings me to our question of the day. Are you active in loving the Lord? I don't think there's a person in here who probably at not some point in their life said, Oh, I love you, God. I love the Lord. If you're sitting in church, it probably has crossed your mind and come off your lips. But there's an activity to it, right? Not an activity that leads to salvation, as we talked about, but an activity that demonstrates our willingness to surrender and follow him with our heart, to submit and let our soul become energized with him, to trust and let our mind go to depths with him, and then eventually abandon all else and let our body and our strength be led wherever he takes us. Today, my challenge to you is to intentionally love the Lord.